The stars.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Ed Franklin with the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast, edfranklin.nolimits podcast. I have a special guest today. All my guests are special, but Mike and I have a kind of a strange connection, and we'll talk about that as we get along. Remember, you can always contact me at edfranklin dot no limits at gmail.com. That's edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. I almost forgot my own. This is what happens when you get old. You forget your own website or your own email. So, Mike, welcome to the show. This was kind of an impromptu thing, and I'm glad you're on here. We've been trying to connect for a while and haven't made it happen.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ed. Yeah, I've been wanting to get together for a long time now, but hey, we're here.
Right. So we met through John Riley, who I've done a couple podcasts with. I've been on his, he's been on mine, and we just kind of met on Facebook, and I noticed you post a lot, so do I, and sometimes it bleeds into personal stuff, which it's fine with me. I mean, I don't discuss politics or religion or anything like that on this podcast. But sometimes it comes out. It's part of our life, and this is just what happens. I try not to discuss negativity, but that's part of our life too. So anyway, what prompted me to contact you today is you were mentioning that, I don't know, I'm not saying you have a weight problem. I'm saying that you are trying to get to an ideal weight, or whatever you're trying to do. Is that about accurate? We're all trying to get in shape. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So you were asking about diets and things like that. And, I always steer away from the word diet, right? Because everybody will come up with, and they did on your line, they're all good people. They're all trying to help you. But, they got keto, and they got this, and they got the protein diet, and they got all these diets. And as I've discussed on my podcast before, I went through this, I went down this road about 3 years ago. And what had happened is we ended up hiring a trainer, which, not saying you need a trainer, really. Trainers are good because, especially the guy I'm going to recommend for you, he's got a lot of knowledge. He'll tell you whatever you ask him, he'll tell you. There's no hidden agenda on his point, right? He's not a hard sales guy or anything like that. What are you doing for exercise these days? You lift weights and that? I know you're a big guy.
So if I could go back a bit,
do whatever you want.
Yeah. So I was in sports growing up as a kid, and wanted to play football, got hurt real bad in high school. And that was my inspiration behind writing the book that I'm sure we'll talk about later. But and always been into bodybuilding, martial arts. I was very muscular. I could do full splits. When I got out of bodybuilding, I went to martial arts. My body was just getting too beat up.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do something else, stay active. I was a late bloomer with martial arts. I did it in my mid-teens, and then I got into my early 20s. Like I was about 20 when I got into Taekwondo for a while. And then I was always real flexible, but real, tight up top because of all the weightlifting.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while and enjoyed that. But, I'm a brain injury survivor. So, smart route to go because they want to kick you in the head. And I've got kicked a couple of times and decided, well, it's probably not the thing for me. So I moved on. And for a lot of years, I did nothing. And my body just went to complete crap. I wasn't working out, wasn't exercising. So basically what I do now, well, when I was about 38, I'm going to be 52 next month. When I was 38, my doctor told me I needed to lose weight. I was weighing about mid 250s. And he said, so what are you going to do about it? And I was like, okay, guess I better lose weight. And I went on my own weight loss thing, and I don't recommend it, but I need to get my weight off quickly, which I need to do now. I'm heavier now. Lost 60 pounds. Took me 8 months.
Right.
And I was in the best shape of my life. Now, granted, I wasn't really eating the best either. I cut my meals down to next to nothing.
Yeah.
I was drinking a lot of water, but once I lost the first 30 pounds, I started playing indoor soccer over here in Poway. Started jogging, and I'm not a jogger. I was never a runner in high school.
Me either.
Always a lifter, never a runner. And jogging was the best thing that ever happened to me. Getting into that, I started running every day, at least a couple miles a day. And The indoor soccer helped. I played once a week, and every time I played a game, I'd lost about a pound or two and kept it off.
Yeah.
Plus, I was working in the dairy box at the store, and that cold environment, plus the amount of work that I was doing and not taking in a ton of fuel, I was burning off a lot.
Yeah.
So the weight just was coming off. And every time I got to a plateau, it didn't take long for me to change things up, and then the weight just came off. Now, fast forward to now, I'm in my mid 270s as far as my weight's concerned. I carry it well because of my build, because I still lift a lot at work. I'm a produce manager at Albertsons, and I do a lot of lifting. I'm on my feet. I get a lot of steps in every day. But when I'm done for the day, I'm done. The muscles are depleted, the body's tired. Time to go home and just sit down and relax. If I was to force myself to go on a walk, I generally feel better. If I get on the treadmill or go walk around the neighborhood with my wife or just on my own,
Sure.
lifting weights, I'm kind of done with that. I don't do that anymore. If you look at me, I'm still built like a brick house because I do lift a lot at work. But the muscles that I have are designed for work, not designed for health.
Right.
And it's kind of unfortunate that we let our work life dictate how our healthy lives and our personal lives end up. So now I'm like I said, I'm going to be 52 next month, and I'm just too heavy. I just lost my mom last year. She was always real heavy. She was 69 years old, a few months away from her 70th birthday.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going, damn, I got down to 195 pounds when I was 38, just after my 39th birthday. And I would love to be able to break that 200-pound barrier, get under 200 pounds again. And, my wife changed herself around, changed her diet. She lost a lot of weight. She's hiking all the time. She walks every day. I don't know if I can do that. So my focus right now, I think, needs to be diet. I know you don't like the word diet, but I use it because it does mean something. It means to me, diet means a plan. It means
That's kind of what I mean. When I say I don't like the word diet, it's because these people, if you're on TikTok or anything, everybody's got this new thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, you eat that, and you're going to lose weight, and you're going to do. It's really a lifestyle, right? So you want to just get to that lifestyle.
Absolutely.
So you said your wife goes hiking. You can't do that. Why is that?
I can do it. I go hike with her.
Okay.
But I don't do it often enough. And because now that I'm a big dude, bigger dude, it's harder for me to go on the longer hikes. I have to make sure that, if it's longer than 5-6 miles, round trip, I really can't do it. It's just too much. I think I could if I built up to it, even though
I was going to say, if you were back at your ideal weight, you could do it.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, without a doubt.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people listening to this podcast struggle with weight, right? So I'll be 61 this year. I was lucky enough. I did play sports in high school too, and after high school. And I just always rode bikes, or I was very active with the kids, or I'd go to the gym. I was lifted this morning. I lift, try to get 5 days a week in lifting, and I do that. I like it. It's my kind of meditation, right? When I have my headphones in and I go do this stuff. I don't ego lift, so I go and try to do exercises that are going to keep me flexible. When we went to my trainer, my wife went too, but we went separate days. He told her that she was the second most inflexible person he ever met. And she says, "Who was the first?" She says, "Your husband."
Oh, my God.
I was super just not flexible, and I'm still need to work on my flexibility and stretching and things like that. So I feel where you're at, right? So I'm going to back up a little bit. We'll get back to this diet thing, but you grew up in East San Diego.
Correct. Yeah.
And where did you live at?
Two neighborhoods real close to each other. I grew up on Marlboro.
Okay.
And then we moved, I think it was after my 8th grade year, I think it was. We moved over to Van Dyke, which is basically you got Marlboro, 42nd, and Van Dyke.
So I
was south of University.
I grew up one block south of University in Euclid, right? So on Auburn Drive, it was right behind Big City Liquor and all that street behind there, behind in the canyon. And I went to Euclid Elementary School. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, I'm a little older than you, so I was there. We moved to Poway in 1974, right off of Aldrin Avenue, which is a block away from Garden Road School. on the north side of Garden Road.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of aligned, and we kind of grew up. Now, did you go to high school down there?
Yeah, I went to Hoover.
Okay, so I would have went to Crawford if I stayed there. My brothers and sisters went to Crawford.
Yeah, my wife graduated from Crawford.
And I used to play basketball. I used to take my allowance, my $2 allowance, and get like 4 hot dogs because they were cheap at
Yeah.
that Wiener Dog, and then play a basketball on Saturday in a league back when everything was free, right?
Yeah.
And then so I was at Hoover all the time doing whatever, and I have a lot of good friends that went to Hoover. So that's interesting that here we connected and we really lived in the same neighborhood. But like I said, I'm a little bit ahead of you, so that's
Yeah.
interesting. So back to the diet thing. So we went, and so what my trainer's kind of thing was he just kind of gave us a list of things we could eat, right? There's some do's and don'ts, and I'm going to send you an email. He just sent me an ebook that he did that gives you kind of a guideline on some of his favorite things that he uses. And what we found, because I lost 60 pounds in that first year I was training with him too, and I weigh about the same as you. I'm about 6'2", and if I was 195, I'd look like I had cancer. I mean, I could never break 200 again. There's no fucking way. I get to about 235, 240. I'm lean as shit. I'm in good, and I always tell people when I talk to them about this, because when I did lose all the weight, they're like, "How did you do that?" I said, "Well, it's consistency, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
we ate right, we ate clean, nothing out of a box, all these little things." And and one more thing that we have in common: I worked for Lucky Stores, Food Basket,
Yeah,
and
that's where I
Jimco.
started.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
worked for Food Basket and Jimco, back
Okay.
first started in 78,
What
78,
store?
78. I worked in Escondido
Oh, okay.
because we had
Yeah.
by that time moved to Poway, of course. I was 16 when I went to work for them. My brother worked for that Food Basket on University right there, University in
43rd.
yeah.
That's the one I started at.
Yeah, he worked there forever, and then he moved around a couple times. Now he's even 7.5 years older than me, so
Wow.
you weren't around when he was around. But and then I worked at Jimco in Escondido, and I worked at Jimco in Mira Mesa.
What was your brother's name?
Steve Franklin, but he worked there a long time. So and remember, do you remember Tom the Jimmy? That name
I
sound
know
familiar?
of. I do know Tom. I do know
Yeah.
he worked. Actually, was at the Poway store
Yes.
before he retired or quit.
Yeah.
His sister was Kathy and Jimmy, the actress.
Yeah. So they grew up down the street from me. So my sister
Okay.
hung out with Kathy, and my brother hung out with Tom, and I was too young. I was just a little bratty kid. So I was just there like, I gotta watch him again, kind of, fucking kid.
Yeah, Tom was decent. He was pretty cool, dude.
Yeah, he's kind of an asshole. But anyway,
Yeah. Well,
I'm sure he doesn't listen to my podcast, but if he did, he would expect that from a Franklin. So hear that from a Franklin. So it's funny that our lives are really kind of aligned, like that. But the lifting to me, and I listen to a lot of experts talk about this, that you got to continue to do something, right?
right.
You can't stop. If you stop, you're dead. I mean, you got to keep moving. I haven't lost really any strength. I just don't lift as much as I used to,
Mm.
just because I just don't want to. I mean, I just don't want to go in there and kill myself and hurt
Right.
myself or whatever. I don't have any knee problems. I have obviously didn't go through what you went through, which we'll get into in a bit. But when I said on the Facebook post that it's just super simple, it really is really simple. People just expect it to happen in a week, and it just doesn't. Right?
No.
It takes probably, what do they say, 30 days before someone else notices it, 60 days before you notice it, and 90 days before everybody notices it.
Yeah.
And that's really that consistent part. And I think what I kind of preach to people is just take it a week at a time. If you got to take it a day at a time, that's fine. But a week, just do a good week of it and then start it again, right? And get all
Yep.
that shit out of your house because you're going to eat it. You get off work late. Sometimes you're fucking eat it. If you come home, you got to get rid of it, right? I know, because I'm the same way. I always talk about excuses. How I can make an excuse not to go to the gym. Anything I can say. Well, the guys are doing a rough across the street, and the dogs are going to bark, so I'm not going to the gym. I mean, what a stupid. You know what I mean? I could make up any fucking excuse to get out of something, but I've been really consistent now, for the last month. But prior to that too, we moved, so it was a little bit hectic during that time. But anyway, no, I just, I'd love to see. it's just frustrating when you look at yourself and you're like, damn it. Or you have these pants, right? So I'm getting rid of a bunch of pants
Yeah.
in my closet, and there's like some 34-inch waist. I'm never going to get a 34-inch waist. I really don't want to be in a 34-inch waist anyway. But I have them still. I saved them. Like, I'm going to get thin again. No, I'm not that thin.
Yeah. I'd be happy with a 36 loose. I'm at a 44 snug right now.
Yeah,
And as like I said, I'm the heaviest I've ever been. And it's unfortunate that this happens, but I also got to look at it this way too, that my metabolism has changed significantly in the last 13, 14 years compared to when I lost weight the last time. And I was in my late 30s the last time. And I ended up being in better shape than I was when I was 19. And 19, I was in the best shape of my life. I mean, I was in great physical condition. I was strong. I was bodybuilding, but I didn't have any real stamina. And that's where I'd like to be at. I don't want to be real strong. I just want to be lean. I want my clothes to fit loosely on me. I like
yeah.
that look. I want to be able to put on a suit and have the suit look good. I don't want to be kind of snug and me look like a box. And that's I have an idea of what I want to look like, but I'm half Sicilian. My mom was full blood Sicilian. She was a big woman, always been. Being this size is kind of runs in the family. Not that I use that as an excuse, but just genetics plays a part in and how your build is also.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I'll never
100%.
be slim, 195. I got down to 195 pounds when I lost the weight the first time. And that lasted a day. The next day I put on a couple pounds. My body just could not sustain that weight. It needed
Well,
to.
I'm gonna disagree with you there. It's really up to you, and you got to find. So I tell you what, I'm a big visual guy. So if I find a picture of someone that it looks like that's the kind of body I want, and that's my body type and everything, I'll cut their head off on a picture and then put it somewhere, right? And I'm looking at it visual all the time. I keep in mind, dude, I lost that 60, 70 pounds. I was 59, I was 58.
Wow.
So you can change your metabolism back. It's got, so, when people say, well, you got to burn the calories. When you lift weights, your body, when you're done doing it, you're continuously burning for hours and hours and hours after that.
Yeah.
When you do cardio, it pretty much stops when you stop that cardio, those calorie burns. You
Yeah.
should only be doing cardio when your body is toast, either first thing in the morning, so when your body's catatonic, or after a really heavy lifting time or whatever. That's when it's gonna help. Now, there's guys out there that say cardio doesn't lose weight. Horse shit. Look at you ever seen a fat runner? You ever seen a fat cross country
Hey,
runner? Or you know
I'm
what I mean?
telling you, it worked for me. But you
Oh, I
hit the
know it
nail on
does.
the head.
It does. You got to get some
You,
cardio in there. You need your lungs exercise. You need all that stuff going.
well, you hit the nail on the head at exactly where you should be putting your cardio at. And it's got to be after you lift or like first thing in the morning, get your body moving. Because when you go to lift, you don't, they say you should never do cardio right before you work out because you're burning off all your necessary fuel that you need for your
Yep,
muscles when you go to lift.
100%.
And this is the problem that I have with working in the stores is that I'm already burning off all those key ingredients I need to go get the pump that I need when I go to the gym. I'm not opposed to. I say I don't want to work out anymore. I'm not opposed to lifting. I guess permanently. I'd love to get back on a routine, but it would be light. It would just be
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
going for reps just to get the joints conditioned and work the muscles a bit. I'm not going to put on any size. I have a wide back, shoulders. I mean, uh, it's just
I do too. How tall are you?
well, now I'm 5'8". I used to be 5'9", but
All right,
I
so I'm
dropped an
six
inch.
two. So I think we're built. So when I met my wife, I wore a 42 long jacket, right? I used to wear a suit every day. When we got married, or maybe 10 years later, I wore a 54 long. My shoulders got huge. And I was taking some stuff I probably shouldn't have been taking. It wasn't steroids, but it was legal. It just gave me some size, right? So I have big
Yeah,
shoulders now too.
yeah,
I still wear like a 48. If I can get it a 48 long, that's still pretty good size for me. And I'm hovering that 270 area. I need to get down to about 235, and I'll get there. Um, but I know exactly how to get there, and it's really eating clean. We did a 30-day challenge a couple of years ago, and I lost 20 pounds in a month. Now I had no carbs, no alcohol, no sugar. I ate carbs about 2 times that month, and I could tell when my body needed those carbs. I was starting to kind of get tired.
Yeah.
So what I would do is get up for. I don't have to have breakfast food in the morning. I could eat fucking spaghetti. It doesn't matter to me. You know
I'm
what
the
I mean?
same way.
Yeah, I can eat it. Whatever we had the night before, I can eat in the morning. So I would get up and have a big plate of rice and stuff, which is because that would just be my stored fuel right for the day, those carbs. So that worked out slick for me. And when we'll get back there too. One of my problems is my wife's a good cook, and we both like to eat. So
Yeah.
we have to, we have to find other ways. So another thing I did is cut out salt, any spices, nothing in a box, like I said, and a lot of water, right? Tons of water. No alcohol. Alcohol is a weight killer. If you drink, it shouldn't even try to lose weight. It just kills you.
Have a drink. But I'm a foodie, so that's my drug, unfortunately.
All right. So those people out there, I just want to let you know that this is not brain surgery. There are ways to lose it. You gotta dedicate some time. You have kids at home?
No, they're actually both grown now and both in well, they're both out of the house. I
Okay,
got one
that's
in
good.
college
That's
and
better. Because kids, well, I have a teenager at home that just eats anything, right? And
yeah.
he's kind of picky, but he can eat. He should. Hey, he says, Papa, the other day, he's 15, almost 16. Look at my abs through my shirt. And so after I punched him, no, I didn't punch him. I wanted to punch him because his kid's he's just ripped, right? I mean, he's 15. We were all like that back then. So, all right.
Is
So
he is
people,
he
I'm just
tall?
letting you know, here's two old timers, I guess. I'm an older timer than you that still care, and we still want to look good, and we still want to do all those things. And we know that it's simple. It's consistency. It's a routine. It's lifestyle change. It's all those little things. So I want to get to this book. So tell me about the book. So you had an injury, a brain injury in football.
Yeah. So I was in my sophomore year in high school.
Okay.
We were playing against Claremont High, and it was away, so we were there playing, and the game was close to being over, and it was on special teams. We had just scored. We kicked off to them. I was on special teams. I was running down the field and took a helmet to the chin,
Ugh.
and it didn't knock me on my butt or anything like that. But I stumbled back about 10 yards, just stumbling back. The guy just came up and hit me right in the chin with his helmet,
Yeah.
and my head was just pounding. So I get to the sideline. I tell the coach I can't go out for the next play. My head's killing me. Something happened. And I start walking on the sidelines. I start losing feeling in my leg. I start having these issues, because the hemorrhage. I had a hemorrhage.
And
And
no concussion protocol back then, obviously. It was
no, I mean it
just,
was
yeah,
in 1986. It was
right.
October 2nd, 1986 is when I had the injury. So then they came and checked me out after a little while. There was no ambulance on the field. They had to call an ambulance. I'm starting to lose everything. I'm laying there on the bench. Coach is talking to me. Anyways, long story short, they finally get me all. They try to figure out what's going on. They can't figure it out. They thought it was a concussion. One of the coaches looked at me and says, "Oh, it's just a concussion. You're fine. It's just a concussion." But
Just a concussion.
once I started losing feeling in my left leg because the
Right.
hemorrhage was pushing against my brain, then that grin he had about it being a concussion turned into a look of fear. I saw it switch like that.
Yeah.
And the head coach, Coach Stone, he was like, they wanted to sit me down. They laid me down. They kept my body moving. They got the ambulance there as soon as they could. They rushed me to Scripps Memorial, which was probably the best hospital they could have taken me to at the time.
Right.
That doctor saved my life, man. I was slurring. I was just all messed up. I started getting feeling back because the hemorrhage was just kind of dissipating or kind of maybe making its way around a bit. So it wasn't as bad. But my mom gets down there, they say they took me in for x-rays and then they took me out and they said, yeah, he's got a hemorrhage. We got to go in right away. I was in surgery 6 hours, the first surgery, and I wasn't supposed to even make it through that first surgery because
Wow.
they couldn't stop the hemorrhage. But this doctor that I had was brilliant. He was just a great doctor. So what they did was they couldn't stop the vein that blew from hemorrhaging. So they had to pack it off. A lot of times they use VAS clips, I think they call them, to seal off a vein, but I think they use gels or whatever it was. And he said his words verbatim were like, we just packed the vein away. So they could have used gels or whatever. They just packed it and just closed it off. So then your blood just figures out another way to go. It was one of my sinus veins, and you have a few that go up the back of your head.
Okay.
So I call it a brain injury because of the effects that I had from it. Technically, it is, I would consider it's in the category of brain injury. I claim it. Some people might say, well, it was just a hemorrhage, or it was a head injury versus a brain injury. I don't have any lasting effects. I mean, I'm a little forgetful here and there, but anyways, I recovered. Well, I had the surgery, made it through. And then that there was some complications. They put a shunt in my head that affected my stomach. I had about a dozen surgeries because of that one
Wow.
hit.
Crazy.
Tracheotomy, I kept going in and out for surgeries because I kept having complications and other issues. And I was 15 years old, mind you, at the time. So I was scared, I'm a kid.
Yeah.
I figured out when I started coming to and I was starting to get better that I wasn't ever going to play football again. That was done, So, and when you're a poor kid growing up in the ghetto, well, we'll call it a ghetto, but you're growing up in a poor neighborhood, you know
Yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about. There's only a couple options for you. You can either go work or join a gang or get drugs or, that kind of stuff. And it's just like, I just decided to work. But anyways, the motivation behind the book was after everything I went through, I was in the hospital for 2 months, had about, I don't know, I think it was, yeah, I was in the hospital for 2 months from October to the end of November to the end of December, had about 9 surgeries. And then Valentine's Day of 87, and I had come back to school. I was recovering. I had 2 more stomach surgeries because of scar tissue. Now, what the reason I had the stomach surgery was because the shunt they had in my head to drain spinal fluid, they drained it into my stomach. And that's pretty much protocol for a head injury. Someone's got a head injury for spinal fluid, they'll put a shunt in there. So they had to take me back in. Not only did they have to do surgery on my stomach to get the infection out of it, but then they took the shunt out, put a temporary one over here on the right side, and they closed it off. They said, if we close it off and he's not having any issues, he's probably not going to need a shunt. So they closed it off, and thankfully, I didn't have any issues. They pulled it. I never had to go back in and put a shunt in my head because, from what I hear, some people have issues with them after 20 or 30 years. You have to go back and have it done. And luckily, I didn't have to have that done. Then Valentine's Day of 87, I ended up doubling over. I had scar tissue buildup. I had to have a couple of surgeries on my stomach. So that was about surgery number 11 or so by that time. And then fast forward to graduating high school, I had a soft spot in the back of my head where they took the bone out and to let the pressure, everything expand. I had a plate put in my head following Monday after graduation. I could have did it sooner, but I didn't want to take a risk of something happening to me. And then I was going to be in a situation where I was going to graduate or whatever the hell it was. And I struggled through school, and I struggled, man. School was not my strength. I was lucky to graduate.
It wasn't mine either, but I didn't need a head injury for that. I just didn't like school. I hated school so much. I told my dad, I don't want to go back. I was like 14 years old. He says, well, dumbass, you got to graduate. So back then I figured out a way to get credits in the summer and everything. I took summer school every year. I graduated a year early so I could go to work at Food Basket at night, so I could get on night crew. But anyway, I interrupted you. So
no,
graduated from high school.
That's exactly what I did. I graduated. I had my last surgery. It was June of 89 when I graduated. I recovered for a couple months, and then as soon as I came back to work, they put me right on night crew, and I would never look back. For 9 years, I was on night crew. Built my body up. I started working out, training, and stuff like that. So to get back to
the best job for lifting because you could get off where you could go home and you could choose when you slept, right? You could sleep after work, you could sleep before work. It was a great job.
And that's pretty much what I did. And I was in the gym 6 days a week. So, but to get back to your original question, the motivation behind the book was obviously for that reason, plus my upbringing from the neighborhoods, being raised by a single mom. And then later on, I talk about in the book, me getting married, life after the injury. You have to talk about the very beginning, what led up to it. Then you talk about afterwards. So basically I talk about my life previous, to the injury, and then I talk about the injury and focus on that. I had a girlfriend in high school. She supported me the whole time. That breakup devastated me. And
Sure.
then you move on. You just talk about the things that we deal with as young men or kids growing up in these neighborhoods, and you deal with these challenges and how you get over them. It took a lot of work. I focused on my body. I focused on trying to build my body up, so in case if I ever got sick again, I would have that room I needed. You know what I mean? Because when I got hurt, I lost like 32 pounds. I was a
Yeah, I'll bet.
skeleton. You're in the hospital for, I mean, I'm in intensive care for a month. I have a trach. I mean, I'm skin and bones. When I got home, I got to tell you this. When I got home, they let me, when I was in rehab, they let me come home for outpatient type stuff. I get home, I'm with my best friend. We're in my bedroom. I take off my shirt because I hadn't seen a mirror. I didn't see what I looked like. I took off my shirt. This is when I started going into rehab. I was skin and bones. I looked at myself. And I was just like, oh my God, I got to do something.
Yeah.
I pushed it hard in rehab. And when I got home, I would be, the old plastic weights, concrete.
Oh yeah.
I would be lifting those, and the arms were just coming back. My legs, I was walking and just trying to build that up. I was lucky that I didn't have permanent paralysis. I was lucky I didn't have any permanent brain damage. I had an injury and I had swelling, but no damage, luckily. So, but the book was I published it in 2019. So in February 2019. So it's been 4 years since I published the book. And for years, I had people telling me, Mike, you should write a book about your story.
Yeah, it's a great
It's pretty
story.
amazing. I mean, we all been there. We were all there. All the kids in high school, my relatives, all my friends from high school telling me, man, are you ever going to write that book? They reached out to me on Facebook. You have this great story, man. You almost died. We all came and visited you in the hospital. We didn't think you were going to make it, Well, I wasn't. I almost died so many times. It's ridiculous.
Crazy.
But listen, I was given a gift to keep on going. So that inspired me. I just one day, you get on these kicks. One day I just said, I'm going to write this book and I'm going to start right now. I pulled up this website, looked at it, how to write a book. And they gave you like an outline to start writing pages. And then I took all that. I did the book. It took me probably about, I don't know, maybe a week or two. I was writing a couple chapters, a chapter or so a day or whatever it was. It's not a long read. It's probably about maybe 2 hour read. I wish it was longer, and I wish I would have added pictures, but I at the time I just wanted to get it out there. So I did that. Then I moved it over to Microsoft Word and did some of the editing, and then I actually forwarded over to somebody who edited the book for me. Did an okay job. There's a couple errors still in the book there. But overall, I was happy with it. And I think if I was to do a 2.0 version, there'd be a lot more information, a lot more content to it, and some pictures. But that was the motivation behind the book to get it going, was because people kept telling me, man, you got to get your story out there. You got to talk to people. You got to stand up in front of people. Problem with that, depending on the situation, I could talk to anybody, but talking to a group, man, I might just fall apart. I mean, that's one of those things that you have to kind of get out of your comfort zone and learn to do, just practice,
And I talk about that. So part of my podcast is telling your story, right? Your story is a big deal. What concerns me about a lot of people, though, is they'll tell their bad story, right? So I grew up in that same neighborhood. My dad was an alcoholic. We had all kinds of problems from my dad.
Yeah.
And I had such a great mom. She made us awesome, right? So, well, I don't know. That's debatable, but she made us who we are today. And what was I going to say? So, yeah, you got to get that story out there. But a lot of people tell themselves the wrong story, right? They're telling themselves the wrong story, and it holds them back. The speaking thing, see, I can get up in front of 10,000 people and talk. It doesn't bother me at all. And I can talk about anything. Somebody said on Facebook the other day, or on LinkedIn, what could you talk about for 30 minutes? I said anything. And someone commented that I know says, I know you could, Ed, but most people can't. So my wife's not a big getting up and talking in front of a group type people. She doesn't really like that. I go into a room full of 30 people. I'm looking for a microphone. I mean, I just have no issue getting up. I kid with people. I said, if I had to talk in front of a stadium, I'm blind, so I can't see. If I'm not wearing my glasses, I can't see, 50 feet. So as far as I was concerned, there'd only be 10 people there anyway. The front rows are the only people I could see. I couldn't see anybody else. So that's an amazing story, dude. So people, because I didn't go to college, I went back to school like 10 years in like 1989. I graduated in 79 or 80, and I went back to become a cop, but it's not something that worked out for me, which is good because you don't want me carrying a gun around every day. But I was making $14 an hour in night crew, right, with all the pay and everything. I was driving a Corvette when I was 19 years old. I mean, I didn't want. I had guys working for me that were going to they had master's degrees, but they worked in the grocery business because
Yep.
they could make money.
Yep.
Right. And in 1980, 81, making 14, $15 an hour, triple time and holidays, blah, 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 and full
Yep.
benefits, all that shit, man. I was killing it. And then I went to work for Pepsi after that. So I worked for Pepsi for quite a while too. And then I
Yeah.
sold products to Pepsi for quite a while and kind of learned I was traveling a lot in the 11 Western states calling on bottlers and things like that. So you mentioned earlier you lost your mom last year. See, moms are the best, right? Moms are amazing. And you said here you had a single mom that went through all this with you and was there supporting you and probably doing everything for you. And I'm sorry you lost your mom. Unfortunately, this is going to happen to everybody. And I
Yep.
lost my mom in 1997. She was only 60 years old.
Wow.
And she had cancer, got over it, and then came back. And I lost my dad when I was 19. So, but I had a stepdad that was fucking amazing. So he was great. And he actually moved in with us in our Poway house after my mom passed away a couple of years after. But yeah, I'm sorry you lost your mom, dude. I mean, mom's
Thanks, man.
just the best. But you have that memories of your mom, and that's where you get your strength from. By the way, I'd like to say it's us dads that give all our kids the strength. I don't know, man. Moms are the best.
You touched on something earlier about talking about the bad stuff and everything like that. I kind of left that out on this interview. I mean, there's the upbringing I had wasn't the best. And
Yeah.
my mom tried, but she was not an easy person to live with. And I didn't have the closest relationship with her, up until she died and everything like that. I kind of wish I did, but there's just some animosity there that just kind of, and even my brothers. I have two younger half brothers. My mom was remarried. That didn't work out. So she raised three boys on her own. My middle brother was a phenomenal athlete, played football, was a running back. Could have went somewhere, but grades hurt him. School hurt him. He just wasn't good at it, just like the rest of us. So,
Mhm.
but I I put all that in the book, and if I gotta get you a copy of my book, and so you can read it.
So, what's your book called, first of all, for the listeners?
It's called The Heart of the Lion, and it's
Okay.
by Michael Ryan. No, The Heart of the Lion: A Journey Back from Brain Injury, something like that. I'm drawing a blank on it right now. By Michael Ryan.
Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
And if you just punch in The Heart of the Lion, it won't come up. You have to put The Heart of the Lion by Michael Ryan or A Journey Back from Brain Injury, something like that. I'm drawing a blank on my own title.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm gonna find it and I will put it in the link when I publish this, which I'm gonna publish this
I
next week.
appreciate that. But like I was saying, upbringing was a little tough. My mom was real strict, very physical and verbally abusive. That's kind of just her thing. And she always felt bad about that.
Yeah.
My grandparents were Sicilian. My grandfather was real strict. My grandmother was a pistol, man. I love that woman, but she was tough. She was mean as hell sometimes too. But she loved us grandkids, and
Sure.
she was real protective of me. My mom became a Jehovah's Witness when I was 8 years old.
Mhm.
So playing sports was one of their things that they didn't really want to do because of bad association type stuff or whatever. But my
Yeah.
mom never wanted me playing football. And, I almost wasn't going to play because my sophomore year, I went in for my physical. The doctor noticed that my blood pressure was elevated.
Yeah.
It was funny that he said that. I'll get into that story here real quick. I said, well, what if I was to play with high blood pressure? What would happen? And he said, Well, you could blow a blood vessel in your brain and be paralyzed from the neck down.
Wow,
So
that's kind of a
isn't that freaky? So
foreseeing. Yeah,
when I got hurt, well, first of all, he gave me some sedatives to take. He goes, maybe you're just nervous. Let's give you some sedatives, calm you down a little bit. We'll do another assessment in a week and we'll see how you do. Well, I
yeah,
passed that, no problem. Blood pressure was down. Always had an issue with blood pressure for some reason. Um, but when I got hurt, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Oh my God, I'm losing feeling. The doctor popping up in my head the summer before I got injured, because you go through Hell Week and then you start playing the
yep,
season. I'm thinking, oh man, I'm gonna be paralyzed. I'm not. And luckily, everything's working. I'm good. But the upbringing that I had wasn't the best. There was some violence involved into it. There was like I said, some abuse. I had a lot of resentment towards my mom, and I don't know, about 10 years ago, we almost lost her to a sickness, and I wasn't talking to her for 2 years. We got in a fight, and I hung up the phone on my mom. I said, I'm not, so don't ever call me again. I'm done talking to you. And man, I tell you what, I almost regretted that forever. And,
yeah,
it's one of those things that, sometimes you got to pull yourself away from people that are toxic. And my mom just tended to be kind of toxic. We just get in these arguments. And I told my brothers, I said, hey, I'm not talking to mom anymore. I don't want you to invite me over. She's going to be around. I don't want to talk to her. This, no bullshit. I don't want to deal with this. I'm tired of it. And, for 2 years, I didn't talk to her. And then she got really sick. We almost lost her then. And my aunt sat next to me and said, if your mom gets through this, you guys really should talk about working through it. My mom got through it, surprisingly enough, and we figured it out. We just kind of put it to rest. And I kind of let that go. But I've been dealing with that stuff for years. I've gotten some counseling, and I haven't seen my counselor probably in quite some time now. The last time I saw him, I talked to him on a Zoom call like this was back in October, September, something like that. And this was after she had passed. And I should have seen him regularly more to kind of keep my mind right.
yeah.
And there's no shame in seeing somebody, because it really helps get things out in the open. And they do try to help guide you down a more productive path. They
Well,
give
I tell you, everybody, when you're born, you should get a psychologist
no
and
kidding,
keep
man.
them the rest of your life. I mean, we all need, it's this podcast is therapeutic for me in a lot of ways. And I didn't have a lot of problems growing up when I was a kid. My dad was a handful, but my mom was just a fucking rock, man. And we spent a lot of time together when I worked nights. I used to come home and she was retired. We just have these really nice conversations.
Yeah.
And I got so close to her I kind of learned that she was a person, right? She wasn't just my mom. She had her own identity. And I got to learn about that. I have zero regrets with my mom or my dad or my stepdad because I was a communicator. I would talk to them about things.
Right.
And you got to understand they're their own person, right? They're going to do whatever they do, and you can't control it. It's just like a drug addict. I just did a thing about living. I have two daughters that are drug addicts, and one's recovering and one's trying, and one's recovered for like 7 or 8 years now. But you have to take yourself out of their life at some level because it's hard because especially with kids, everything's
Yeah.
your fault, right? But you have to be able to separate yourself. And I know that's not easy for you to just bring all that up right now either. I know, because this is going out to people that are going to listen to it. But this is important that people hear that they're not alone, right? We all are fucked up in some way. Actually,
Right.
I saw a TikTok thing that says we're all fucked up. There was just this guy saying, "You're all fucked up. Y'all need to, y'all need counseling. Y'all need to talk it out and things like that." One of my most recent podcasts, one of my most listened to podcasts too, is with a gal that does she's not a business coach, she's like a growth coach, right? And you should listen to that. She talks about kind of getting over these things this trauma that we've gone through in our lives, and it fucking stays with you, man. And I don't care. I've talked to janitors, homeless people, CEOs. Everybody's got something going on, right? And this is what I do my public speaking about, which I'm trying to do more of, is that we all got to take care of ourselves. We got to nurture ourselves. See, your weight issue is your business, and it's not anybody else's business, not your wife's, not your mom's, dad, nothing. It's your thing. And in order for you to be the best version of yourself, you need to take care of that. You know why I know that? Because you wouldn't bring it up if it didn't bother you. So it's bugging you, and you've got to address it, right? And I'm not
Yeah.
counseling you. I'm just saying I have the same thing. I have certain shit I need to work out on my own. Somebody could help me, but I need to, in order to be the best nurturer, the best, boss, friend, whatever, I have to be taking care of myself first. It's the oxygen mask thing, right? You got to put that on before you can help your kids.
Yep.
But I really appreciate you opening up because it ain't fucking easy, right? Especially for guys. We think, we can get over it. We're fucking tough. No, we need to cry in the corner sometimes too. You know?
I've never been one to look at myself as somebody being weak for displaying emotion, because you know it's in some instances people respect that a lot, because you're not afraid to, not number one, open up about it, but you're not afraid to go after and try to do something about it
Sure.
either, because that just makes you a stronger person, being able to recognize that you have certain strengths and certain weaknesses, and some of those weaknesses really wreak havoc in your life and you need to address them. You can't have a solid, healthy relationship with your wife and kids if you're mentally screwed up
Of
because of
course.
things that,
Yeah.
because of a head injury, because of upbringing. My mom's religion, that, and that was another thing that in the book, I say it in the book. I go, there's strike one, there's strike two, there's strike three with my mom. And one of them was when I got injured, they wanted to give me blood in the hospital because of the stomach thing. And my mom was not having it. The witnesses don't take blood, no blood transfusion.
Oh,
This
wow.
was 1986. This is just after AIDS started.
Yeah.
So everybody was freaking out. My grandmother was livid. I can hear them going at it like cats and dogs. My girlfriend's out there crying, her mom, they're fighting, everybody's fighting. I'm sitting there with a tracheotomy, sliced up, staples in my head. I'm just jacked up everywhere, tubes coming out of my body,
You're like,
heart monitor's
hello,
going.
hello,
Yeah.
hello. I need some
I'm
help.
like, I'm the one who's freaking dying here. I got a stomach popping out here because of internal bleeding, internal infection, and all that other crap that needs to be gotten out. Finally, doctor came up to me and said, Michael, we got to give you the blood. Your blood count is very low.
Yeah.
My mom comes in, don't you know that doctors can do surgery without blood? They this and that and the other bullshit and all that other stuff. I go, well, the doctor came in after that, and I said, go for it. And I said, let's do it, because they were going to get a court order anyways because I was a minor.
Right.
So if that doesn't mess you up, man, knowing that your
Yeah.
mom is trying to, and I blamed her for a lot of years, man. It took me a long time to get past that. It's like you're trying to not hate her for it, but she's trying to look out for your best interest because of her beliefs. So I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, you're willing to risk my life because of something that your religion is telling you that's wrong.
Yeah.
How do you put your 15-year-old child on a deathbed and go, well, we're just gonna let you go. I guess we're gonna. It was almost like faith healing. I'm like, let the doctor do his job.
Yeah.
We checked the doctor said, well, we checked the blood. It's fine. You're good. We need to give it to you. I was the deciding factor. I said, do it. My mom came in afterwards. Why? Don't you think this and that and the other? Do you think Jehovah's going to save you? I go, man, my mom and I had conversations about that afterwards. And, that was a lot of what I resented for many years. I would never do that to my child. My son had surgery. He almost died because we thought he had cancer when he was like 2 years old.
Yeah.
I would never think of putting my child in that situation. So, it kind of came back to me when my son had an issue. So,
Well, but in defense of your mom, you have to, I think you have to probably look at her childhood.
yeah, it wasn't easy.
Yeah. So she probably, God, I would hope she was doing what she thought was in your best interest, right? I only say that because I think that, in this, especially in these days we're in right now with all this judgmental stuff, we don't know
Right.
people's background. We don't know. There's a great video that I got to find again. This guy walks into the Starbucks and he sits down at this table and there's a pair of sunglasses there and he puts them on. And with those sunglasses, they're like magic sunglasses. Everybody who looks at it tells a story about that person, what they're going through. We never know what anybody else is going through. I have a lot of compassion for people because even though I had a rough, I didn't have it as rough as some people, right? I mean, I fucking meet people on a regular basis. I'm like, fuck, I'm glad I didn't walk in your shoes, brother, because I don't know what I would have done. And some shit's happened to me you don't want to go through, right? That's just the way life is. And and you think that when you get older, the struggles are going to be less. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, you gotta. I have a friend that I'm supposed to have lunch with today that had something horrific happen to her, a girl from high school, and she's almost my age. And you know, here she is dealing with something that she fucking never could have, you know, even had fathomed that would happen. And we had something like that happen a few years ago. So, um, you know, I'm sure your mom, I mean, I obviously didn't know her, but I'm sure she was doing what she felt was in your best interest. And
And I
she may
believe
not
that.
have known how to love her children either. Maybe she didn't get that when she was a kid. My mom was so, I learned so much from my mom. She loved us so much. The stuff that she had to put up with my dad and the stuff she had to go through. She used to work at the Kmart at 54th and University.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
she went from being working in menswear to being a personnel manager back then. They didn't call them that now, but so she worked. So when she was in the menswear, she would have to work 1 to 10s on like Friday night, right? So we'd go down and eat lunch. Remember they had a fucking cafe in there, or
Yeah,
excuse me, we'd go down there and eat dinner with her, or she would make us dinner before she went to work. I mean, there was four of us too, and my dad was just absent half the fucking time. So she, it was amazing what she did. Never bitched once, never complained about it, never complained nothing. And I got to know a lot about my mom. She had a shitty way she was growing up too. Something that's funny. We used to make our kids. I have 8 kids, so I had 6 daughters at home at one
wow.
time, and it was a blended family. On Saturdays, we used to do chores like for an hour and a half or whatever. We had a chore board, and chores would switch off. And my kids would say, "Did you have to clean when you were a kid?" I said, "No, I was really clean, but my mom never made us clean. She'd make us leave the house so we wouldn't get dirt on what she just cleaned." She says, "I had to do so many chores when I was a kid. I'm not making my kids do that." So she was learning from her bad experiences.
Right.
So I never asked my kids to do tons of stuff. They just had a few chores they needed to do just to be responsible. But your mom probably never had the ability to love like she should have had, right? That's just my opinion, but
I would
you
agree to
know
that.
more about it, obviously.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying that my grandparents didn't love her, and so my mom has a brother and a sister, and my aunt's the oldest. And I love my aunt. I love my uncle. He's been through a rough patch himself, and but my mom used to tell me that how she would get spanked or how they would treat the girls in the Italian families, Sicilian
Yeah.
families. Boys were treated like gold. My uncle was the youngest, got away with everything, and then his life he shit his whole life away. And now he's in his like late 60s, and he's just struggling, and just trying to stay clean and try to stay normal, I guess. And
Yeah.
but it wasn't a great environment, but they always took care of the kids. My grandparents took very good care of them as far as making sure they were clothed, that they were fed, they had a roof over their head. My grandfather worked hard, and losing my grandfather was a really big hit to the family. I was 10 when he died. So he died in 1981, I think it was, and he was 58 years old. He died of colon cancer.
Oh wow.
And man, that he was strong as an ox, man. When I say that man was strong, I mean, he didn't he was strong. I mean, and he was an amazing person. I mean, he loved the grandkids, and it just sucked because that's a big blow to the family. I didn't have an adult figure, a male figure in my life. My grandfather was kind of like that for us. My grandparents were the glue that kind of kept the family together.
Mhm.
Losing my grandfather, my grandmother had assumed that role until she passed away in 99. And I wish she would have lived another year or two because she would have saw my son be born. And my son
So
was
let me
born.
ask you a question.
Yeah.
Are you guys good parents, you and your wife?
I think my wife is an amazing parent. I think I have some work to do.
Yeah.
I've always had, well, it's kind of late now. Well, no, let me
No, it's
retract my
not, brother.
statement.
You're not done parenting. I've got news
No,
for
no,
you.
it never ends. It never ends.
No, it does not.
I think I've made quite a few mistakes, kids growing up, but our
Yeah.
relationships together are decent. I think they're pretty good. Me and my daughter have a pretty good relationship, but the kids, my wife is mama bear. The kids go to her for everything.
Yeah.
But my son and I have had a strained relationship because I felt that he needed discipline in certain areas. And they always felt that was harder on him than my daughter. And I said, listen, I said, I was raised by women, a grandmother, a mother, and an aunt. Women are very important to me in my life. I watched my mom be abused by my stepdad when I was
Yeah.
little. I saw some violent things growing up. And I think just as men in general, we tend to be very protective of the women in our lives.
Yeah.
I've got women that work for me at the store that I'm very protective of. It just that's how that's how I'm designed. And for the boy, my son, I love these kids like no other, right? But I was kind of hard on my son a little bit, and my wife just thought I was being overly. You're mad at him. You're more mad at him for something small than not getting mad at him for something that you probably should have talked to him about. She just didn't like the way I was parenting. She didn't like the
Yeah.
way I was handing out a discipline or how I was speaking to him. And me and my son got into a couple things when he was a teenager, and it was like I need to really stop because he's just not responding to it that way. It's affecting him emotionally. And my wife said on several occasions, your son is going to start resenting you. Your son is resenting you. Your son got up and walked in the opposite direction out of the room and went upstairs. Why do you think that is? Because he did not want to talk to you, didn't want to face you. He was tired of it. He walked out.
Yeah.
And I go, you know what? No parent wants their child to shut them down and just pull themselves out of a situation because of what could potentially happen. And I'm stubborn. I've been stubborn. I'm in my older years. I'm starting to realize now the kids are older that I'm starving for their attention now. That I want their attention. Well, now they got their own stuff going on. They
Yeah.
don't have time for dad, mom. They come home, visit, give us a few minutes of their time, then they're out. They're done. My son, when I turned 50 2 years ago, my son and I shared, a drink, and I don't drink, but matter of fact, he finished it for me. He got us 2 shots. And then I took a sip of that. I'm like, He goes, I'll take it, Dad. Powered it down. He's a college kid. He's he's living the college life, right?
Yeah.
And then we got a couple cigars. We're sitting on the patio of our room. My wife got us a nice room, my daughter and her inside. And me and him are out there smoking a cigar, and we just started talking. And we just had like this amazing man-to-man discussion. My son's 23. So he was at the time he was 21. And we're sitting there just kicking back and smoking these cigars and just talking. He goes, Dad, goes, look, what happened happens. What the past is the past kind of deal. We're just kind of coming to
Yeah. Good
Jesus
for him.
moment, even though I'm not a religious person. So we just kind of talked about some of the things that he goes, Dad, I just feel like sometimes you were getting mad at me for all the wrong reasons, and it kind of took it to another level. He goes, I mean, I forgive you for all that. And just hearing your child say that, hey, I forgive you for your mistakes that's a huge win because man, as
Sure.
parents, you don't know how you're doing. Like you said, I think you said earlier, I mean, it's like you need an instruction manual about life just to get you through everything. Parenting
Crazy.
is next level. You created
Parenting is next
lives.
level. And we have 7 daughters and a son.
Wow.
And I have 17 grandchildren too. I mean, now I'm going to have 19 by the end of the year. So
Oh boy.
I really didn't have problems with my kids. I was a communicator. I would talk to them. I'm like, my mom said something to me once. She said, say no to your kids as little as possible. And if you have to say no, make it a really good reason. You really got to convince yourself it's a bad idea. Like, I don't know, like going to spending the night somewhere or something. If I felt like there was a danger, so I was very sure you can do that. My grandson just got his ears pierced, right? And my daughter called me because he lives with me and says, you mind if we do this? I said, no, I don't care. He's 15. It's cool. He's good looking. You know, I can take him out. No tattoos, but she could get, of course, I have tattoos, but I didn't get them until I was older.
Yeah.
So, I often go back to that thing. Well, what's the big deal here? Are we picking? Is this supposed to be a battle? I have a little battle with him once in a while. He's just a wise ass, right? Probably learns it from me. He just does it. He doesn't have good timing all the time. So, But yeah, parenting, goddamn dude, that's another. I should do a podcast on parenting. I've kind of done some things that touched on that, but well, Michael, we're gonna wrap this up. Because I think we could do another podcast on some other things and we can talk about it later. But
Sure.
I love when people are vulnerable, right? And you opened up, you told us a lot of things about your life that you didn't have to tell us. You could have skipped over a lot of that. But it's important to me that people are real, right? And I think we're going to end up being good friends because I think you and I need to go have lunch here and there once in a while. You're
Sure.
at the Albertsons in RB, right?
Yeah.
What hours do you work? You're the manager, so you get the good hours.
Well, I'm mostly working 4 a.m. to 1s now right now
Yeah,
because of
I
the way our
love that
lottery
shift,
system is.
man. When I was in the grocery business,
And I tend to take a half-hour lunch, so I'll get off at 12:30. So there's
yeah,
Chicken Charlie's right there in the parking lot, man. If
yes,
you ever
there
want to
is.
meet me there for lunch, we can always go
No,
there
that's the
after
worst
work.
place. We're not eating shit. We're gonna go.
Well,
We're gonna eat healthy.
he got salads there. He's got salads. They're good salads too.
I know, but
Um,
here's what people do with salads. I'm gonna do this tonight. I'm gonna put some chicken in my salad, then I'm gonna put
yep.
dressing on it, and then I just killed the salad, right? Because dressing's all fat. But I don't care because I want a salad. I want dressing on myself. My wife eats a salad with no dressing on it. I'm like, you're
My
fucking
wife's the same. She'll
can't
try
do
to
that.
dip the lettuce in the salad dressing and eat. I'm like,
Yeah,
come
I
on.
can't. So I mean, we're gonna, we'll have some more discussions offline, but we'll. I really appreciate being on here. I will put your link. I'll find your book link, and if I can't find it, I'll email you. But I'll put your book link in there. I think that's cool. I think you have some stuff you want to do in life, and you're going to do it because you're stubborn and you're going to keep, like you said, you want to, you want to do that. I'm proud of you that you wrote a book. I'm glad you're with us still after that major injury. And I don't know. I think it's a great podcast. I'm going to air this next week because I'm doing another one kind of for the season that we're in right now. But I really appreciate you being on. Stay on for just a minute
Okay.
until I'm going to do an outro and then we can chat for a minute. So, all right.
Sounds good.
Thanks again for being on.
Thank you, Ed.
This is Ed Franklin with the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. My guest today, Mike Ryan. Great story. Hope you guys, well, if you're going to listen to this, you're going to hear me saying this. If you want to contact me, it's edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. That's edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. And I appreciate all of you. And Easter's coming, but I'm doing another podcast soon. So you get to hear that one. Have a good day.
The stars